This episode of This Agile Life has been brought to you by BrilliantAgile.com, providing Agile and Scrum training, consultancy, and personnel.
BrilliantAgile.com. Done right, it's brilliant.
Recorded on Tuesday, October 16th, 2012, in St. Louis, Missouri. This Agile Life, Episode 6, Developer Defense. Welcome to This Agile Life, a podcast about what it's like to be agile in the real world. Joining me today are my co-hosts, Mr. Amos King.
Hello, world.
Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for pitching in the last time and keeping the ship going without me.
I try. I don't know if I did the job that you would have approved of, but it was a heck of a lot of fun.
Well, you did the job. And I appreciate that.
All hour and 30 minutes of the job.
Right. You overdid the job.
Hey, it worked well for my drive into work.
Perfect. And Mr. Nate Mackey. Nate, how are you, sir?
I'm doing fine. Glad to be back.
Yeah, you've had a few weeks off.
That's right.
Not from work, but from the podcast.
Yeah.
You've been working hard getting the new facility all ready for us here.
Yeah, finally. Got a break here.
It looks great, too. Thank you. And our special guest tonight, Mr. Mike Bishop. Mike, how are you doing, sir?
I am well. Thank you.
Thanks for coming in and joining us tonight. Why don't you tell our lovely listening audience a little bit about yourself?
Could you read some more stuff? Did you, type all that up?
No, I'm doing this all off the cuff.
Oh, okay.
Great.
I'll kick you. I will kick you so hard.
Sorry, Mike. Didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's okay. You gave me a second to think about what I was going to say, because I always hate that question. I hate introducing myself. I'm Mike Bishop. I'm a principal partner at a small Ruby on Rails shop called The Able Few here in fabulous St. Louis, Missouri. And, yeah, that's me.
And you're into techno music and hip-hop music?
Yeah, I'm into all kinds of
blog.
music and kind of I mistakenly said the other day that I was a bedroom producer.
Bedroom?
Exactly.
How many kids do you have?
What is a bedroom producer?
It means that I don't have a formal studio, put it that way.
I would have called it a
closet.
Garage studio.
The garage is
Garage producer.
Sound quality in a garage is horrible.
Is it better in the bedroom?
Definitely don't want my gear in the garage.
Yeah, okay. I understand. So we've got Mike in special today to talk a little bit about something called developer defense. And Mike, I have to tell you, Amos has been absolutely driving me crazy. We got to get Mike in. We got to get Mike in. When can we have Mike in? I'm like, dude, relax. We'll get Mike in. When can he come in? Oh, well, you can Skype in. I'm like, we don't know how to do Skype yet.
I mean, I'm just sad that we don't have video set up yet so everybody can see how beautiful Mike is, which is why I wanted him in here.
We'll take some good pictures of him.
It's true. I can barely stop looking at him.
You can find pictures of me on various subreddits. No, it sounds kind of funny to hear it titled so specifically. I think Amos probably pushed for that term more than anything. No, it's okay. It's finally time that one of my drunken ramblings has actually formed a school of thought. So, no, I think, when we were talking one night, and I've given this talk 1,000 times to people, and, what I consider developer defense is, taking the skill sets and the people that are around you that are producing these really complex systems, and making sure that they get the due respect that most people don't even understand. All of us have had, if you've been working in this industry for longer than a year, have war stories that go back to that old account executive or that old project manager or that old customer or somebody who just had no clue what the hell you actually did, what it was you were doing in your day-to-day, job. And, that's absolutely the worst place to be, is when somebody just knows nothing about what you do. So I kind of focused my career and then, starting an agency as well, around that principal concept of, defending the people that are doing the work. And that trickles down all the way down to defending their time, defending them from, just bullshit requests, and defending their lifestyles as well. I mean, we don't fit in 9-to-5 boxes. We don't fit in 9-to-5 thought. We don't fit in cubicles. So all of that kind of ideal of putting the developers and putting, the talent, in a place that makes them, the most successful they can be, maybe stemmed out of more than anything selfish reasons. Because it's like, hey, I want to do this and I still want to have fun and I don't want to hate people. So you kind of have to, to put up those walls around those things to make things fit. Does that kind of sum it up well enough?
Was there a specific incident that occurred in your life that kind of made you feel like, boy, from this point forward, I'm going to do things differently and I'm going to do things my way?
Yeah, I'm not going to name any names here because that would be pretty detrimental.
Please.
We like to protect the unnamed people.
The not so innocent.
Yeah, we're gonna plead the fifth at the parties at play here. It was right before Christmas several years ago. Me and my team had been working on this property for 6 months or so, and one of the account people came back from lunch with the client. And on a piece of a napkin, literally, this was their plan, had drawn up a feature for this property that, said that it was going to be done before Christmas. I took one look at the feature and I didn't talk to him for 2 days. I was so furious that I knew I was getting ready to ask my team to give up their Christmas break and have to work over the holidays a little bit. And I came back and said, there's no way that this feature is going to get done. It's just impossible. You have no clue what you're talking about. You need to stop selling this stuff, all this. And I went back to my team before even bringing it up to them. And it was the first time that I just swallowed something and said, I'm not even going to tell them. I'm not even going to, let them know the bullshit that they just dodged. And I'm just going to go and have this fight with this guy and, we're gonna argue it out and, he's gonna have to go back to the client and say no. And it was like the first time that he had ever had to say no. And that was really, really, empowering at that moment because, I knew that if I was ever gonna, have to, have the time or have, the kind of respect or anything else like that, to do my job effectively and be successful at it, I really had to start putting up walls and really had to start, playing the protection game. He ultimately did have to go back to the client. He brought me to the meeting. I even told him before the meeting, I said, go ahead and throw me under the bus all you want. I don't care. Make me look like the bad guy. That's fine. And he acted like it was a really huge deal before the meeting. Like this was fireable. And, the meeting went off and the guy said, okay, that's fine. He had, the client
so the customer said, okay, that's fine.
Client was completely okay with it. And the other thing that kind of, illuminated was, that there's this, really weird pressure out there for, deadlines and features and functionality and all that kind of stuff. There's always this weird pressure out there that you can never really identify, who's the cause of this pressure. And what I found is that a lot of times that pressure is just completely perceived by somebody because of their personality, and then they amplify it to the rest of their team, and it causes all kinds of stress and it causes all kinds of fumbles because, people want to break the plan or step away from something to do some fix. So I think that, developer defense, DD, should really be, it's really just a concept of just being level-headed and just saying, okay, maybe it's not that big of a deal. Maybe the world's not gonna, completely fry if this thing doesn't happen.
So Mike, our original conversation that you and I had about this started out talking about whiny developers, and I mean, there are a lot of whiny developers, and I know that you were probably talking about me when we were sitting there, but you
do whine a lot.
I do whine a lot. I'm doing developer defense. I thought that's what I was doing. Maybe it's just whining. but you talked about when a developer whines about something, it's not always, most of the time it's not just because they're trying to be lazy or they don't want to do something. You said that it's usually because they have some life experience or something throughout their development that they've learned that a certain thing is bad. And you mentioned talking to your customers about developer defense, and I was just hoping you could reiterate some of that.
Well, I think there's a the emotional aspect of our lives that we don't really pay attention to much. We kind of suppress and take it up. But I mean, if you look at software development, it is an extremely creative field. It doesn't always get the same kind of creative spotlight that, say, designers do, or architects even, or anything else. But I mean, what we do is Genesis. I don't know if you guys have read the Mythical Man Month, but that first chapter. I mean, that first chapter, I read it like 10 times in a row, and I didn't go anywhere else with that book. But I never had read something that was so. Yeah, the fans kicked off here, and it sounds really eerie. It really was this kind of emotional explanation of what it is that we do as purveyors of code. And developers, you get guys on your team sometimes that that will put up errors or whine a little bit about something, and I think that it's usually best to identify like what is their source of pain with this thing. What is it's not a skill problem, or it's not a I don't know how to Google problem, or I've never heard of Stack Overflow problem. There's often like blocks that's just like in their head that says, I can't do this. I don't know how to do this, and I don't want to do this, or something like that. And if you can kind of identify those things, then it's easier to get past the problem. A good example, a great example actually is like security. Anytime there's any kind of like storage of personal information or anything like that, where somebody doesn't feel like they have the confidence to build out features that are going to deal with those sorts of things because they never have before. And so they might sit there and complain, like, not necessarily about doing the feature or something like that. They might complain about, not thinking that this is the right goal to hit right now, or want to move on to something else, hoping that somebody else will pick up the security question later. But if you can identify that they're afraid of that, you can identify the emotions involved in those decisions, then you can address them easier.
Well, I mean, that seems like a good concept regardless, is to try to find the root cause of why someone is against something.
Yeah, we're getting Freudian in here.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, developer defense sounds like maybe it's just a mindset. Maybe it's just a way of saying, if the developers are upset about something, let's try to find out why they're upset and figure out if there's a way to change the problem or change what they're upset about, rather than just saying, shut up and do your work. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, totally. I mean, shut up and do your work never works. You get a guy off kilter, and it's not gonna play well for anybody involved.
So do you use specific ways to go about getting at the root cause, or are you just talking about general good conversations? We do things like retrospectives to address these things in a formal manner, but we also address them on a daily basis just by regular team interactions. What do you guys do? So, I mean, we're small. Our processes are small. We're not very formal about pretty much anything. Our employee handbook can fit on a business card. So, there's not a lot there as far as the company goes that answers this problem. And not to say that, that we're free of any problems because we have the right mindsets or anything. We still have our fights. We still have, whatever inside of a small team. But I think it really comes down to just being tightly knit and being really close to everybody on the team, and making sure that you spend time with each other that is not work. All the normal kind of team building things that, everybody tells you to do. I think that when we don't do that, when we don't, go out and have 2-day benders, or, have a, cabin, over the weekend, or,
don't go to conferences together or any of that kind of stuff. You can see the effects that it has on code. You can see the effects that it has on productivity. And, there was this documentary about, Penn and Teller, and they were talking about how, they go on road trips, they sleep in the same room all the time. And it's because they learned from other comedians in the past that they were much closer knit group. When they had that kind of, closeness, and I'm not advocating that we all start sharing beds as developers because that can get ugly. But, it is trying to, create that kind of, you're my brother, I'm your brother, we're going to, defend each other, to the end.
So, when we talked about this before, we also talked about, how this translates to the customer, right? So if you have a developer whining about something, like we talked about trying to find the root cause works well to know each other, but then how does that translate to speaking with the customer? Like, do you just kind of try to squash those in house, or do you take those concerns out to the customer too?
So my role has changed quite a bit, at the Able Few. At first, when me and my partner Spencer had first founded, we did everything. Everything from code, QA, contracts, take out the trash, scrub the toilets. This past couple of years, we've had some growth, and this year specifically, I have, almost completely stepped out of the developer role and become client facing, which is, I think it's okay for me because I rather enjoy talking. And I love the art of communication. All that to say that I've kind of been thrown into this, not ever planning to do this in my career. When I think about, the guys, and I think about, the team and how we're working with the clients, I bring them up all the time. And I will often say things, well, like, I can't ask them to do this. You're going to burn my guys up if you ask me to do this. You have to be reasonable. We have to figure out something that's going to work. And it often has nothing to do with workflow or bandwidth or how much the guys can eat. It's, most of the time it has to do with the systems just aren't there. The infrastructure is just not there, or the thought isn't there. The absolute worst thing that can happen, is, for my guys to pull the extra effort to do the late nights if they need to, or to really be on point and only surf Reddit, for an hour a day.
Only an hour?
Only an hour.
Wow.
What kind of slave driver are you?
If they do work and then it gets, the idea changes, or, a revision completely knocks out somebody's work, that's demoralizing. So, trying to protect from that too is like, saying, hey, let's make sure that you have all of your thoughts collected on this stuff before my guys start chewing on this, because, we want to make sure that we're not going and stomping on somebody's baby. It's code, doesn't have, cute fluffy ears, but, somebody really, really loves that thing.
I think far too often I've seen in big companies and big corporations, Fortune 500 companies, there are whole departments called human resources, right? And we take the word for people and we turn it into their human resources. So you pour pizza and Red Bull in here, code comes out over here, remove the waste, do the process all over again. Developers, they can't call them resources. They're not these little coding machines that you just fill up with pizza and Red Bull and send them off on their way. I mean, they have families and they have
That'd work
other
for me
interests.
for about a week.
Exactly.
I mean, pizza and Red Bull, I can do that for a week.
And then you would fall apart and start to really, your quality of code would really go downhill. You need that quiet time for your brain to relax, recharge. That's why we talk so much about sustainable pace as one of the core principles for delivering quality software, is that we need that time as developers to recharge our batteries, vent off some steam,
And
get charged up and go again.
Yeah, and to come up with new ideas. I mean, there's a lot of genesis that happens in the middle of working, but I mean, everybody in this table right now is probably like, yeah, you're mowing the yard and an idea hits, or you've been battling a problem for days and you're just sitting there watching the ball game and then it hits. And I have a creative background as well. You can tell by the hair. well, this is audio. They can't see my hair.
We'll put a picture up.
Yeah. So, I excuse me, I really do, covet that time, that downtime, to have those kinds of, regenerative thoughts and to be able to, to just relax so that you can think clearly. So I think that that's really important. But, back to your human resources point, I've really taken it, as kind of a personal mission to refer to stop referring to us as developers and more as talent. I think that it's a cooler word.
For sure.
But I mean, you cannot dodge that, right? Like, it's developer or whatever, right? No, talent. I mean, like that, yeah, it is the verb and the adverb or the adjective, sorry. Just feeling all over here. But it is, it is that word that really does tie well to, to saying, hey, we are cool people. We're not just resources and we're not just an email address.
Yeah, I'm happy with, just not being called a resource. I bet you deal with this a lot, Nate. I mean, in the company and in your life, probably, in the roles that you've had with getting pressure, right, from people to work overtime or, I don't know, whatever the other crazy things are that customers sometimes ask for.
So what I'm thinking about as you're talking is that, first of all, a couple thoughts come to mind. One is this image, supposedly negative image that Agile has sometimes, that it's this developer-centric way of doing things, and the developers get to decide how long it's going to take to do something, and the developers get to say, no, we're not done working on this. We want it to be better. We want to keep coding on this before we hand it off to you. And it gets a bad name in the business world sometimes because the customer, the big business side customer, the management customer, thinks they're giving up too much control. They're saying, the developers get to make all these decisions and I just have to live with it, whatever it is. So that's one way when you're saying that about developer defense that I can hear that, pointy-haired boss side of what you're saying, saying, look, if you're doing it Agile, we've already given up a lot of control. We're letting you do this process the way you want to. We're letting you write automated tests when it seems like you're spending a lot of time writing stuff that's not code for me. Yeah. Why should you constantly, win in every argument and every decision? And we do face some of that. And so there needs to be, and we've always said this about our business, that there needs to be a level of trust established between the customer and the development team for this kind of thing to really work. The customer needs to trust that if the developers are saying we need more time or that, that this particular feature really needs this aspect to be done before we deliver it, that they're doing it in the best interest of the product and not because they, don't feel like taking this extra step, or they need more time because they screwed up and they don't want to tell you, or whatever it is. It takes time to develop that trust. But once you have it, I think you really got a good situation. But it's hard to do that first sell, that first time you talk to the customer, to say, okay, here's how we're going to work, and be able to get all of that right at the beginning. It's a gradual process. Do you find that? Or?
Yeah, well, going to your point about, the customer not feeling, I can't remember the words exactly what you said. But the customer feeling like you're doing things that you shouldn't be doing, or you're wasting your time writing, tests or whatever. These guys are wrong all the time. They have been our entire lives. They don't know what they're talking about, and they come down to us and they act like they know what they're talking about. And then on top of that, they play coy. I'm talking about bad clients. My good clients, if you're listening, I love you.
All of my clients right now, I love you.
But it's this kind of like, this deadline mentality, or this, I need it now mentality, that I think ruins what we do. At the end of the day, the only thing that goes live is working software. If it doesn't work, what's the point? And to have this ideal of deadlines is just really, really stupid in an industry where we can change anything 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I mean, it could literally change at any minute. There's no such thing as a deadline. I mean, that whole concept, deadlines, all of those sorts of things that clients cling to and they use to add pressure. They pick these arbitrary dates and they say features must go live by this or whatever. 9 times out of 10, they're not tied to some national marketing campaign that actually has something to do with it. And if they are, it should never be done in such a short time frame that the deadline could ever actually threaten the product. Defending your time and getting more time and telling the client that, that they're wrong or they have to wait or all those things does require lots of trust. To get there, I think the only way to do that is to regularly deliver, results. So there's aspects of Agile that definitely create that trust, that, they might be adverse to or whatever, but, it really does come down to, the client trusting you saying, yeah, you gotta hold back, you gotta release less features, you gotta, take the time to do this thing right. It's scary to say this, but deadlines are shit. They don't really help anything. They don't help software be better. We can continue to work on any problem that we have and make it better. The resolution of that feature could be greater and greater and greater. It doesn't matter what the feature is. So the more time you have with it, the better it's going to be most of the time, unless you're working in Java. But he
had to slip the knife in the back.
Sorry.
Now you know why I invited him.
Yeah. You fit in well.
Take like just a simple feature that everybody knows, a send a friend feature, right? Everybody knows exactly what send a friend should mean. I mean, since AOL and the walled gardens, put in somebody's email address, hit a button, and it sends, right? That feature could be expanded upon 1,000 different iterations. It could include incorporating Gmail contacts automatically or Facebook contacts, or it could scrape your Twitter profile, and it could just keep going further and further and further. Or it could be timed, or it could, use your own custom message, or you can put your face on Santa Claus's body, or there could be a chorus of angels. It could just keep going and going and going.
That happens every time I walk in a room.
Yeah, that's most marketing meetings, they're like, when does the bomb drop? So it's, having the time and saying, okay, well, look, if you're willing to push this back a little bit and give us some more time, it can be better. We could take smaller chunks and do it, but, developing that trust, that's really hard to do. There's egos and like I was saying, a lot of clients will play coy because they don't want to look stupid in front of the computer guy, and it's like, well, yeah, maybe you shouldn't be leading this project.
So, I actually have found that in building that relationship, it has helped a lot being at a consultancy because it's not my product, right? So I've been in conversations with the customer where they didn't want to listen to what the team was doing. Features that the team is like, this is stupid. Why are we doing this? This is dumb. It's going to make the product horrible. And I go to talk to him and I try to be sweet and nice and break it to him easy that this is a horrible idea.
To the customer?
To the customer.
Okay.
And usually they only come back at me once. And then I say, hey, wait, look, I'm a consultant. The only thing that I have here is my pride. And this, to me, is a resume builder because in a year when I'm done with this product, that's all it is for me, is a resume builder. And I want to put the best product out there for me to build. So I have a lot of pride in my work. And I want nothing more than for your website to be the next biggest website in the world or biggest whatever car stereo software, I don't know, in the world, because I want to point at that to every potential customer in the future and say, yep, I built that. I want to point to that to all of my friends and say, hey, yeah, that's right. That car stereo that you have, I wrote all the software behind it, and that's why it's really cool.
That's a very Ayn Randian.
I don't know.
I was going to say it's
Outlook.
I mean,
Don't know who that is.
We all kind of want to.
Normally, I don't say I don't know. I just bring it up on Google on my computer and then be like, yeah, yeah.
Ayn
So,
Rand
but my
is?
computer's
She wrote
dead.
Atlas Shrugged, The Fountainhead, very libertarian, Russian. Ayn Rand.
I know Atlas Shrugged.
There you go.
But
Yeah, so that's
I suck with names like that.
okay.
What is your name?
we all want to build something that people use,
Right, and even when you're not in a consultancy, you want to. Even if I'm doing a product, ultimately, as a developer, I sell a service. Yeah. Whether I work for a consultancy or I work for someone else's company, unless I am working for myself, I am selling me. I am selling a service. I'm the only product I have. So I always want to make the best thing I can possibly make within the confines of what my customer, my boss, my project manager, my tech lead, whoever is asking for, because the only thing I have to sell is myself. And it seems like if you can get down to that honesty level right there and just say, hey, look, the only thing I have is me, so I want to give you the best me that I can give, that they usually step back and go, okay, and then they want to listen quietly. They don't get mad, they don't yell anymore, because they know that their best interest is ultimately your best interest. And once they realize that, they sit back and listen and speak with you. And it's been amazing whenever I can get that to happen.
I can't remember where I heard it before, but it might have been on a blog or in a book somewhere. If anybody knows the reference, it'd be awesome. But it's hard to get a client when you're telling them it's in their best interest or whatever. Like testing, for instance. It's hard to get them to say no to that. It's hard for them, to say, hey, I need another day with this because I want to make sure it doesn't break. And if you get them thinking like that, and they'll give you that day.
Well, and I want them to be my client because it's in my best interest. That's what I like to tell people too. That's a good sales line that I've used.
So, to break up the love fest a little bit, this is all good. This is good stuff.
Clients.
So there are things that development teams need to do that they just don't like to do. That it's not because they're lazy and it's not because they don't know. It's really because they want to focus on building the application. They want to write code, and that's what they want to do. But so anything beyond that, outside of that they don't see the direct value of, it's hard to get them interested in doing it.
What documentation are you talking about?
You mean like tests and wikis and?
Well, no. I mean, there is that. I'm talking more about metrics and about examining themselves and their process to see if they could be better. We've struggled for quite a while, and some teams will do it, some teams won't. But most teams, if you say to them, okay, you got together in a retrospective and you decided you wanted to make a change to what you do because something was causing you pain, how do you know that change worked or not? How do you know? And it seems like it should be something that people with analytical minds would want to do. They would want to determine, was this worth it? Was this valuable? Did it actually fix our problem? But they're more likely to just make the change and then just go along now with this new thing, not necessarily examining to see if it actually made a difference. So it's just my observation that trying to get developers to do those kinds of tasks that would make them better as a team, but that are not directly coding in their application, it's very difficult to do. And sometimes you have to make them do it in order for them to see the value of it. And that's happened a couple times around here where we just force them to do something, and then once they're forced to do it and they see what it's like, then they're like, oh, okay, yeah, this makes sense. And then they continue to do it. I mean, it used to be that way with automated builds. Back in the day, we would say, all we had is cruise control, and cruise control was painful, admittedly. But we would say, hey, guys, you've been working for 3 weeks. Where's your automated build? Oh, well, we'll get around to it at some point. No, stop what you're doing. Do the build right now. Right. This is important. And once they did it, and now it's like every team wouldn't dream of going more than a week without one.
It's like that first time you start using version control, you'd feel like, why, this is such a pain in the ass. Like, I'm really going to save like every change that I've ever made.
Right.
And then,
but I just tar everything up and pass it over to my friend on a USB stick.
So,
sure you do.
Spencer and I, we used to do a lot of Flash, back in the, very, like 2000, 2001. We were just doing nothing but Flash all day, all night. And, we weren't using any version control, and I had gone through an old hard drive and found an old source file of ours, and it had, the name of the file, and then it was _Mike, _Spencer, _1, _2, like whatever. And I
Version control.
Yeah. Obviously because we'd both touched that file at least once, and I took a screenshot of it, and I was like, oh my God, this is hilarious.
Well, so Nate, do you have any ideas or feelings about why you think it's hard to get talent developers to?
You chewed on that one.
Yeah, I like saying talent. I feel that makes me feel good.
You heard it here.
Does it? Do you have any ideas why you might think that it's hard to get them to introspect like that? I mean, that's a hard thing for anybody to do, right? To some extent, to put that
we're idealistic.
Powerful scope of introspection on themselves and say, there are things wrong with me.
Right.
I mean, think about how challenging it is, right? To, a lot of what we do is self-taught. You can go and get your BS and whatever and come into this job completely unprepared. So, it's pretty magical what we do. I mean, we're just making this up, and we're figuring this out. And, the older developers on the team, we often talk about, the younger guys, and we're like, they still think computers are magical. They still think that there's this magic box in there that's connecting to the database. Well, no, it's active record. Just go and look at it, and you can find out exactly what it's doing. It's not that hard to read, but, that I say that because, that magic that exists there, people get defensive about how they got, to that point. They get defensive about the principles that they stand on. They say, well, I only use these tools. I've never needed that before. Why do I need it now? But, once you kind of clue them in, you're absolutely right. It's kind of hard to turn off. It's a chain reaction. And then they're like, man, everything about my life sucks. I'm going to stop using TextMate today.
Right. So, I think the simple answer is that they don't, at the time that you're asking them to do it, they don't see the value. And so on some things, so it's like source control, maybe you don't see the value of it until you lose something or you overwrite someone, and then you're like, oh, wow, I really needed that. That's important. And then it's worth it for them to take on that extra task. The problem with things like metrics, like when a decision is made.
Oh, just say it. The elephant in the room is if you work here, it's a charter.
Well, that's one thing. Or just when a decision is made by the team, tracking somehow why that decision was made and going back and later questioning that decision and knowing why it was made at the time and being able to say, okay, wait, that was valid at the time. Now it's not valid. Let's not keep doing that just because we made a decision back in the past. Teams just don't do that. Somebody makes a decision one day, client tells you to do something that later on turns out to be stupid, but you just keep doing it because that's the client told us to do it, and we don't know why. Nobody remembers why we did that, but we're just going to keep going. So it's those disciplines that you don't see their value until things go horribly wrong. And then you understand, then you know. And I used to tell people all the time that asynchrony, the growth of the company was we learned things the hard way. We always wanted to figure out why something caused pain and then do something about it rather than putting a whole bunch of structure in place and then assuming we'd never have pain because the structure was there. So there's value to that, and I understand that, but there's certain things where the outcome is so potentially disastrous that you really have to kind of force people to do it. You have to say, no, really, you have to do this because learning the hard way is not an option in this case. We need you to do it this way. So it just runs counter to the developer defense in some cases where it's almost like you're to some degree, you're the parent and you know better than the child who just hasn't had that experience yet. And so you have to make them follow these rules. But all that said, that is a very, very difficult tightrope to walk. And we always have a hard time really pushing that until we absolutely know we need to.
Yeah, going about 20 minutes back in the conversation to, Amos asking about, whiny developers and that these sorts of things kind of, leading to those, whining sessions. Identifying the root cause there most of the time is that, you ask that person and they will say, I was trying to do a good job and I was trying to meet the deadline and I didn't want to do something this certain way because it was going to push me past the deadline. Or they might not even say that. They will just reserve that and they'll think, if I got to do all that other stuff, I'm not going to be as effective and it's going to slow me down or whatever. And I've got work to do.
Yeah,
I've got code to write.
That's right.
Let me propose something for 1 second about what Nate said. You mentioned that you thought that might be counter to developer defense. I actually think that maybe that's another form of developer defense because you're protecting the developer from themselves a little bit, right? Because if
preventative measures.
Yes, exactly. And it may not be the spirit of what exactly Mike has described here in the past as developer defense, but I think we might extend it to include this as developer defense because we're keeping ourselves from poking ourselves in the eye with that sharp stick. Your mom and dad said, put the stick down, you'll poke yourself in the eye. It's that sort of thing. And that's a form maybe of developer defense, I propose.
Yeah, I like the proposal. I accept it. And do we have a second?
Second. Motion carries.
We're just making this shit up on the fly, just like everything.
Yeah, that sounds good. Let's do that.
So, you mentioned the deadline, pushing the deadline back, and yeah, I see that as a lot of it is as a developer on a team that a lot of times we pride ourselves in how quickly we can get something done. And we don't say how quickly, we don't measure time by how long we sit at the keyboard. We measure time in hours, days, even if we've done anything else in between. We went out to eat, we had a team meeting, we did this, we count that towards that time of getting things done fast. And then, and customers are delighted whenever you get something done quickly. And so it is hard for us to step back and recognize, hey, I do need to track what the customer just made this decision that I think is idiotic. Maybe I should write that down because I told them it was idiotic and they said, no, we're going to do it anyway. Maybe I should go write that down. But all I can think of is that going and writing that down or spending time in some meeting talking about how our team is going to work together. That is time that I'm not meeting customers' expectations as far as I'm concerned because the expectations always seem to be put on the development team of we need this on this amount of time. And you gain pride in, hey, I got this done 2 days early. Yeah, so you want to push those meetings off and not have them because you just want to get things done. And I think that's a problem. First of all, I think that we write worse code whenever we do that because we just want to hurry up and get it done.
But you're talking about a client's expectations of time and how things would get done. They have no quantifiable measuring stick to say how quickly something gets done. I mean, think about how much software we put out today versus 10 years ago. And the tool sets that we have now and the amount of things that get deployed. And we're working on an application right now that we're probably 3 weeks in. This would have been a 6-month build, 10 years ago. The client's expectations, they don't have anything to measure it against. They can't look outside and see the first floor, second floor, third floor being built. They don't know what the feature is actually going to take. And software is so volatile that, there's so many moving parts that, it's hard to say that one feature being developed in this application is going to take the same amount of time in another application. That's almost never happened.
To be fair, us as developers, we don't know that either.
Right, right.
It's estimating we ultimately suck at it over and over and over.
I try to draw parallels to other industries, the best I can, in a sense of it mostly to think about, how to speak to clients. I don't know if you guys have ever been involved in a jury trial.
Yeah, I have.
You sit down,
Thank God I haven't.
The first,
they don't allow you on juries anymore.
Gingers are never allowed.
Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome. Souls. There's,
it's hard to be empathetic when
the first time, I sat down with my attorney and, we're getting ready to go through this trial. And, I was like, so what's this going to cost me? He said, I have no idea. And I'm like, what do you mean you have no idea? And he's like, well, it could take 1 day, it could take 20. There's no telling what this is going to be. But he kind of set that expectation that it was volatile, that there was, and his job at that point wasn't to prove his worth, of a block of time. His job at that point was, I'm the right guy for the job. and I'm the right guy to have in that room if it does go 20 days. So he stopped focusing on selling blocks of time to me, started focusing on, on getting the job done. And I think that that's an important correlation. So what we do is, very mystical sometimes. It's like, you sit there and say, well, it might take a day, it might take 5. I'm not certain yet. I mean, how many times has everybody said, well, we'll get in there and let you know? Like, it's an easy answer. It's like, it's like not really a committal answer at all. And it sucks to be that way because you can just see them foaming at the mouth on the other side. Like, I want an answer now. Well, no answer is ever going to be that great of an answer, because there is no quantifiable, thing, unless they're really, really small chunks. And that's what Agile does better, is it breaks things down into smaller chunks. And if a client will play along and, put their deadlines to rest or plan far enough out into the future, then that makes a big difference. The last thing I'll say about that is, that quote about, Abraham Lincoln. He said if he had 6 hours to cut down a tree, he'd spend the first 4 hours, sharpening his axe. That's a really, really good parallel to like saying, okay, I'm just going to calm down, step back and, whatever. But if the client's standing there watching Abraham Lincoln and he sees him, going more than half of the time, not even aiming at the tree, he's still sharpening his axe, rounding 3 hours and 59 minutes, the client's going to be just livid, just going to be completely, pissed off unless he's seen Abraham Lincoln do this before. So all of that going back and tying it into a nice big, like Quentin Tarantino, merge all of the concepts. Sharpen your axe, do it over and over in front of your client, deliver often and build that trust and defend your boys.
So I'd like to, you had one parallel that made me think of, somebody told me one time, and I'm probably going to get this artist wrong, but let's go back to linking software to art. Michelangelo, Sistine Chapel, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Right? Okay. Yes.
No, that was Ayn Rand.
So right before she carved David,
the Pope went to Michelangelo because at the time he was the most famous artist in the world, right?
The Pope is the most famous artist in the world.
Maybe did the Pope do the Sistine Chapel? Wait a second. Anyway, so the Pope goes to Michelangelo, who's the most famous artist in the world, and says, "I want you to paint the Sistine Chapel." Now he didn't go to Michelangelo and go, "Oh, and you have a week and a half because I want it done by this Easter Vigil Mass." No, you can't go to Michelangelo and do that because it's an artistic endeavor. It's not like building, a bunch of houses in a subdivision that all look exactly the same. Of course, the contractor can say, yeah, we can add another house there, and it'll take me 32 days and 4 hours and 8 minutes because we've done this a million times and it's the exact same house. It's cookie cutter. Well, our software is not cookie cutter. If it was, then
we wouldn't be building it.
Right.
It would already be there.
Yeah, there are lots of companies that can do cookie cutter software.
Yeah, website tonight, buddy. Just go hit go.
Well, the people
that just when you were talking about the deadlines and stuff is that to me is like telling Michelangelo, hey, you've got a week to paint the Sistine Chapel. And he's got to come up with the idea on how to do it, what to do, and get it done in a week. And it just doesn't work. He might be able to get part of it, and he might be able to make it really nice, but he's probably not going to get all of it, or it's going to be horrible if he does get all of it. I don't know. Just somebody mentioned that to me one time, and I thought it was a very good
That's absolutely
analogy.
right, and I think we should all think of ourselves as Michelangelos.
Oh, yeah?
Talent.
Michelangelo, like, when he was on the scaffolding one day with his apprentice, and they were painting the Sistine Chapel, he wanted to show his apprentice. He's like, I'm super powerful. I could do whatever I want and I won't get in trouble and I won't get fired. And the Pope was having mass in there even though he had the scaffolding up and was walking by. And when you're up on the scaffolding at the Sistine Chapel and you have to pee, you just kind of pee in a paint bowl. And he just like tipped one of the bowls over on top of the Pope's head apparently. I don't know how true the story is, but I heard about it. And the Pope was like, and then just continued mass because he knew he had Michelangelo, he had the best, and he wanted to keep him. Anyway.
What I got out of that...
I don't know what that has to do with software.
Yeah, gonna try it.
Tomorrow...
Cool story,
I'm
bro.
going to dump pee on your head, Nate.
What I got out of that story is that Amos thinks we can pee on clients' heads.
No, I really don't think so. I just thought it was a funny story.
Well, I'm glad we had this time to talk about developer defense. I think this has been a very interesting conversation. Mike, thanks for coming in and joining
Does everybody
us.
get a last word?
Well, we're going to do our picks for those of us that actually did the homework and
I
have
do. I
picks.
just don't put it on Google Docs because I like to wing it.
It's going to surprise you.
Oh, I see how it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's be surprised.
I
and
usually always put it in after we're in this room anyway.
I see.
I'm completely lost.
We do picks, and I don't know.
I told you about
Amos is
picks.
talking
What?
crazy.
Mike, you don't listen to the podcast?
You didn't tell me about picks.
I did tell you about picks. He's listened to one.
I've heard
two?
the first one.
The first one.
I haven't.
Oh.
Yeah, he's.
That
He
probably wasn't
tells
the
me
best
that on the
one.
way up here tonight.
I was like, "This is the third,
If you
fourth."
listen to episode one,
He's
He
like,
goes, "What is this? Like your fourth episode?" I said, "It's the sixth episode."
"He's like, damn it, man, we've been doing
Or
this for
seventh.
3
It's the
years."
seventh. This is the
Yeah.
seventh
because we're
episode.
zero based.
Yeah, it's episode 6.
Oh,
I'll
you
bet he'll listen to
counted
this
at
one.
0.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, if you're a hardcore computer scientist,
We were
you know,
too,
unless you're using XPath, because
That explains the lab code.
too afraid of how much
That is the
guff
most
we would take if we
frustrating
weren't zero
bug in the
based.
world. To
All right,
find.
tell me what picks are, and I'll just do it on the fly here.
There we go.
A pick that you have about Agile or something related to Agile. It could be
Or-
like a blog or a
or anything.
yeah.
I picked roasting coffee.
That was a lame pick, by the way.
That was not a lame pick.
Totally lame.
I got an email about it.
No, you didn't.
Yes, it did.
Show it to me. There you go, folks. He has no proof. Okay, Amos, let's go to you, sir, for your pick tonight.
Now
Or
I forgot
picks.
because I'm too worried about lying to you.
I don't believe you ever had a pick in the first place because it's not in the Google Doc.
Oh, I told
You want
somebody
me
else
to do my
picked it.
pick instead?
Yeah, go ahead and do your pick.
Okay.
I'll try to remember what mine was because I had it.
So my pick was provided to me by one Mr. Brian Button, who we were talking about the Git Kanban board game, and version 3 is out, so that could be part of the pick. But the real great part of this pick is that version 2, the previous version, is now available for free downloads
Yes.
on their website.
I've been
So-
wanting to play the Git game, and I actually, or the Kanban game, and I actually wanted to take it home and let my kids play it. But then Brian told me how much the
Maybe-
original one cost. and I
Maybe
was like,
you,
well, I can't
maybe
afford
you
to
can
buy
have
that.
Jason Tice over to your house, and your kids and Jason Tice's kids can play Git Kanban together.
Wow.
Wait, I don't.
Is that a good idea?
No,
Wow.
Why not?
because Jason would come in my house and he'd immediately have to start cleaning. I'm pretty sure
You just organize everything.
he would. Hey, wait a minute, Amos. Your spices are not in alphabetical order in your cabinet, and they're in the wrong cabinet because spices starts with an S, so it has to come in the cabinet after the plates.
I don't know. I think that's a pretty good idea.
And then the spoons come in the cabinet after the spices.
I'm going to get your address and send it to Jason. and
Actually,
make
I
a
remember
date,
my pick.
arrange this.
I even told you my pick earlier. It was
I forgot what it
RubyConf.
was.
Because I'm super excited. RubyConf is November 1st, 2nd, and 3rd in Denver, Colorado. And we have 4 developers from our office going, and I'm really excited to go there and hang out again. I missed RubyConf last year because I missed the tickets by like an hour and a half. So I'm really excited to be going there and hanging out in beautiful Denver. I love Denver.
When is it again?
November 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. I really wish that I was going to get to fish while I'm out in Denver, but unfortunately, I'm just going to write code and talk to people.
Are there lakes in Denver?
I fly fish in streams.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, I would say my pick is an article that I read this week on the Industrial Logic blog by Joshua Karyevsky called "Stop Using Story Points."
Beautiful.
It was a really nice summary as to how the whole idea of estimating in Agile has progressed from the beginning, and we followed the same track that he wrote about in this article. As a company, we followed the same track, and he has a suggestion at the end of what to do instead of using story points to estimate your stories. And I don't know that it's the perfect system, but I think it generally describes what we try to do, which is the closer you try to get to estimating something very specifically, the worse it's going to be in the whole. If you can estimate on a high level, don't spend a bunch of time doing it, and then check yourself over and over to see how you're doing and try to use that for progress, you're going to be a lot better off. If you can avoid estimating altogether, of course, that's even better. And that kind of goes to some stuff that Mike was saying, that, what we do is unfortunately not very easily estimable. So we're always guessing and making stuff up when we're doing it anyway. But if you absolutely need estimates, there are better ways to do it than trying to do story points in an iteration, trying to hit a velocity. And so it's a good article.
Very good. I read it. Agree. Very good article. I second the pick there, Nate.
I thought it was really good too. I read the article, even though it was long. And normally when you guys give me homework and it's long, I don't read it. But the title grabbed me because I absolutely feel that way. Even further to where I would say just try to make small stories and don't really estimate any of them. Just start working toward your goal. As Mike said today, things can always grow and change, and we can continue to work on it. So maybe we should start defining done as when the customer says it's done. Instead of
that's dangerous.
When the customer's ready to stop paying us.
That's right. I have the best damn login page you have ever seen. It only took 2 years and $12 million.
Well, I was going to say he even gave some props to counting the stories method that you talked about using on a previous podcast.
And Ron Jeffries has talked about that too at the Agile conference.
And using that as your metric.
Okay, Mike, our special guest host tonight. We didn't give you a lot of preparation, but do you happen to have a pick for us?
I'll pick my nose.
Oh, beautifully done.
Yes.
Wow.
No picks of that on the...
No, how about this? The Mythical Man Month. Everybody should pick it up if they...
Oh,
if
there you
they
go.
No question about
That's
it.
a good one.
Yeah. Even if you've read it before, just read that first chapter again.
I'll have to go back and read the first chapter.
It'll make you cry. Do it on a sunrise with a glass of wine.
Nice. Okay. Is there a wine in that pick too? Do you have a specific wine that would be good?
In the morning, I like to drink something a little sweeter, so I'd probably go...
Mad Dog?
Yeah. I'd probably go with like a, 12-year-old Macallan or,
Something that comes in a gallon at Walmart.
18-year-old Glenfiddich.
Wow.
And I would like to do something different since
sure.
we had Lee on the
I'm
podcast
scared.
last time, and Lee is always sitting in the room. Lee, would you like to scoot over here to a microphone and give us some kind of pick and just say hello to all 6 of our listeners? Oh wait, they're all in this room except for Mike. Wait, no, I'm sorry, Mike doesn't listen.
That's right.
Okay, I have one pick. I actually created a T-shirt today, but it's completely not an Agile thing. I created a T-shirt. It's a black T-shirt with like a nun's habit on the top, and it just says, "I'm a nun," N-O-N-E, on it. It has to do with the rise of the nuns in American society. People that don't claim to be of a particular religion.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I saw that article. Yeah. There's
So you
more...
can now buy that T-shirt, by the way.
Right. Oh, well.
Do you have a website that we can buy this off
Do you
of?
accept Square?
Square?
Yeah, you need to get a little Square for your phone.
Oh, yeah, that's cool. I'll have to post it. I created it today, so it's like stuffilike.somethingshirts.com.
Some hash code in there.
I'll put it in
Yeah,
the
we'll put it in the show notes.
We'll put it in the show notes for everybody.
Man, when you said that you were doing a T-shirt, I was really excited. I thought there was a This Agile Life T-shirt out there that I could wear, because any T-shirt that like may have a picture of my face on it or something would be cool for me to wear. Just saying.
So, like,
Can we just get one that just has a picture of my face on it?
No. All right. Well, that's all we have time for today, folks. I'd like to thank my co-hosts for joining me. First, we'll start with our very special guest, Mr. Mike Bishop. Mike, thanks for joining us tonight. And
Thank you for having me.
where can folks maybe find out a little more about you and the Able Few?
Yeah, you can just Google the Able Few. You can also just Google St. Louis Ruby. We're number 1 listed there. So yeah, just theablefew.com is where you'll find us.
That ain't right.
Hey, I'm sorry.
They must have some SEO magic behind it.
Yeah, that and sponsoring the St. Louis Ruby group doesn't hurt. So
There you go.
Well, that's cool. And thank you to Nate Mackey. Nate, where can folks find out more about you?
Well, my Twitter handle is Nate Mackey, Natemckie. And you can also learn more about our company at asynchrony.com. Also, the Twitter handle Asynchrony, ASYNCHRONY.
Amos King, AD Cron.
Yeah,
Where can
ADKRON on GitHub and Twitter. Or you can find my still horrible looking website, which I actually drew up a design for the other day. So maybe one of these days I'll get a chance to do CSS.
More
Want some help with that?
My website might have looked good in like 89.
I just love
it would
how
have been
Amos spends 5 minutes
a
each
good
time talking
BBS.
about how horrible his website
My
looks.
website's horrible. It's
Why don't you just
dirtyinformation.com.
update it?
Have you seen it?
Yeah.
It's
You know,
junk.
you can get a free theme.
Hey, you know what?
They're like
Hey, wait,
free. Like
wait, you know
designers
what?
don't even want money for them.
It's because I put hard work into my content. I think I have like 8 posts in 2 years or something. But
Mike,
anyway,
I secretly think he leaves it bad so he gets extra microphone time.
I do. I
time
like
at
to
the
hear
end of
myself talk.
The podcast.
Yeah.
I'm going to actually start bringing in headphones so that the only person I can hear talking is me.
I'm sorry, did you say what the site was?
Dirtyinformation.com.
Okay.
I love that domain.
You want to? It's for sale.
Really?
Yeah.
I kind of want it.
Depends on how much money you have.
A lot. Lots of money.
Dr. Lee McCauley, thank you, sir, for being our audio engineer. And I'm John Sextro. You guys can find out more about me at JC Sextro on Twitter or on my website, johnsextro.com. Thanks for listening. Be sure to check out the website at thisagilelife.com to find the show notes for this podcast, and keep living this agile life.
And John doesn't have a GitHub account because he's a Java programmer, and they don't do anything worth putting up in public.
So
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, John. It's nice having you.
I do have a GitHub account
Well, you never say it though.
because there's nothing
Punch
in
to
it.
the kidneys at the
Mine's
end of the show.
Hey, my
Because
my
there's-
blog is hosted on my GitHub account, and I still talk about
There's
it.
there's just little code experiments.
Show is over.